we have to examine all the ethics and all the stuff that came our way. Does it actually make sense for the people we serve? Because we already know that the mental health industry has historically been white male driven. And if that has been the case, then chances are the ethics that they let us have are white male focused and thus driven by capitalism and white supremacy. That requires us to do additional work.
Come on with this opening prayer. Come on, come on. Welcome to the Therapy for Black Girls podcast, a weekly conversation about mental health, personal development, and all the small decisions we can make to become the best possible versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Dr. Joy Harden Bradford, a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia. For more information or to find a therapist in your area, visit our website at therapyforblackgirls.com. While I hope you love listening to and learning from the podcast, it is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Hey y'all, thanks so much for joining me for session 158 of the Therapy for Black Girls podcast. I sincerely hope that you're doing your very best to take really good care of yourself right now and finding even very small ways to tap into your resilience. This past week has definitely been a rough one. And while I considered sharing another episode about racism, the truth is that I'm feeling pretty exhausted by the continuing brutality we face and felt like I needed a little levity this week. And maybe you do too. Dr. Donna Oriowo is back with us to debrief on this week's episode of Insecure. If you're not familiar, Dr. Oriowo is an author, international speaker, and certified sex and relationship therapist in the Washington, D.C. metro area. The owner of A Nod Right, Dr. Donna specializes in working with Black women on issues related to colorism and texturism and its impact on mental health and sexual health. She's the author of Cocoa Butter and Hair Grease, a self-love journey through hair and skin. She and I chatted about the conditions that had to exist for Issa and Lawrence to be able to have that conversation, how you might know if you need to or are ready for a conversation like that with someone from your past, our thoughts on whether this was a closure conversation or a brand new start, and our predictions for the rest of the season. Here's our conversation. So I am thankful for you joining me again.
I am always grateful and so excited to be invited back. You know I love doing this.
Yes, I mean, and I know we had a conversation even before, we started recording just about how we are feeling in the world.
Yeah, it's tough. It's, there's so many feelings. And funnily enough, and I feel like this is that thing that you get when you have wonderful clients, and I do. Mm-hmm. They have been asking me back. So we start off every session with a feelings check-in using the feelings chart, and I've just been like, give them all to me. And then let's break it down. Let's talk about where it is in the body. But they're just like, but you have to hold on my stuff. And I know I'm not the only person you see. So how are you doing? Genuine questions being asked, and I will not dishonor them by not giving them an answer. Mm-hmm. I know that some people say that it's inappropriate and all that, but I'm just like, nah, if my clients ask, I know it's because they actually want to know, and not a sort of rotary question that, you know how like back in the day when we used to get on elevators with people?
Mm-hmm. You got to make like, for small talk.
Exactly, for small talk. And that's something that I try to remove from my clients on day one. I'm looking like, So when I ask you how you doing, I don't mean for you to tell me fine and for you to ask me how I'm doing. I'm looking like, nah, I actually care about what you're feeling. Right. So I want the fullness of them. I want the rawness. If it's beautiful, I want to share that with you. If it's ugly, I want to hold that with you. Whatever it is, I want to be there with you in this space. Yes. So I know that they're asking me legit questions. So I done use my own feelings chart. Like, yes, I feel some type of way. I kind of wish a bitch would. I've been in this space, but I'm also very grateful that I get to be there with my clients as we move through this together.
Yeah, I think that there is something really powerful about that, right? Because, of course, in our training, it's like, don't make the therapy about you, that kind of thing. But that's not what this is, right? Like, this is a shared space of humanity, especially given everything happening in the world right now. So I think it is important that when clients ask you, like, how are you doing, that it's okay to share human to human without it becoming about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, hey, all this, I appreciate your asking me and checking in, but let's get back to you. I will always reroute it because it's definitely not about me.
Right.
But there's just certain canons that I've been examining for myself throughout, with where it comes to the ethics of our practices and things like that.
Right.
And in my quest to continue to divest from white supremacy and whiteness, myself and the therapist that I hired, this is part of the work that we are doing that I'm just like, nope, we have to examine all the ethics and all the stuff that came our way. Does it actually make sense for the people we serve? Because we already know that the mental health industry has historically been white male focused. And if that has been the case, then chances are the ethics that they let us have are white male focused, white male driven, and thus driven by capitalism and white supremacy. That requires us to do additional work.
Come on with this opening prayer. Come on. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I don't think it's any like accident, right, that in our Facebook groups, right, in the Black Facebook groups for therapists, that we will often talk about how our practice looks very different. Like there are lots of things that we have been taught that we have figured out don't work for us and don't work for the clients that we serve.
Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I, again, am thankful for you joining us. I know we had a little bit of a back and forth, like, oh, does it feel okay to do this? Does it feel, wrong to like do an insecure recap? But also decided that happiness and the warm hug is how I describe it, that it felt like we got on Sunday night was something to also be celebrated and to give people a little bit of a reprieve, right? That we can continue to focus on the fight, but also have moments where we are being restored and celebrating joy.
And for Black people, joy, seeking pleasure, seeking peace, all of these things are revolutionary as well. These are not things that have been afforded to Black people. So we do deserve moments where we get to re-engage with things that help us to feel good, that make us laugh, that make us engage in a different way. We can still fight this fight, and we are still fighting this fight, even in the midst of rest, even in the midst of seeking pleasure.
Yes.
White people, they got a lot of work to do, and they should go ahead and do that work. But Black people, part of our work is seeking rest and pleasure.
Absolutely. Come on, we're going to have to pass the collective Cash App collection plate. So that you
can send it all.
For giving us this offering. So this week's episode, first of all, we are just going to start off by giving Natasha Rothwell all of her things, because
she did an impeccable job.
Written was this episode.
Oh, it was beautifully written. It was
beautifully shot.
And then I realized that, I have a penchant for seeking drama in these shows, because every time, you get a call, I'm wound up. I'm like, she gonna show up, ain't she? She gonna show up, and she about to snatch him.
I just knew she was gonna be outside at the end of the episode. I just knew.
Like, so this is what you're doing? I was just so ready for it, and then it didn't happen. And I breathed this breath that I didn't know I was even holding.
Isn't that something? But the rest of the episodes this season have kind of led to that, right? I mean, especially the last time you joined us. With the big blow up with Molly, I mean, it did feel like the collective win was knocked out of us at that end of the block party.
Oh, absolutely. I was just like, okay.
So we did get to breathe a little bit easier this episode.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you know what? I appreciate this is good timing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It felt just like a warm hug. It felt like a warm hug. So yes, thank you so much to Natasha Rothwell, and I'm forgetting the director's name, but y'all did a beautiful job with this episode. It just was beautiful from beginning to end. So in this episode, it was kind of like this weeks long back and forth between Issa and Lawrence. Like he called her and said, I want to meet up, and it didn't happen. And so finally they are able to get together.
And he'd been trying this since way back, since before the block party.
Was it before the block party?
Remember when they were outside?
Oh, remember when they were outside
talking? And yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. He wanted to talk back then, but not enough time. Issa was busy.
Right. So and I'm trying to remember, what do you think sparked him to want to have this conversation with Issa?
Condola.
So she broke up with him, or said, like, maybe we need to reevaluate. And that's when he started thinking about, like, oh, did I, like, end this thing with Issa too soon?
I think it was low-key thankful when she basically was like, if she didn't cheat, it would you still be together? Oh,
yes, that's right.
Got him thinking a thing or two, like, do I walk away too soon? Or am I not properly invested? And I was just like, number one, I appreciated the question. Now, in general, I am so over the saga of Issa and Lawrence. That's just me. That's just me. I'm just like, please don't get back together. Let this be a one-time, we've recuperated, and now I move on. But, like, just generally, I was just like, I appreciated the question because I often feel there's a double standard when there's cheating. Women are expected automatically to forgive. That if they don't forgive, they're not really a ride or die. That they're not really invested in a relationship. And I'm just like, wow, flip the question. Flip the question and really consider, do you walk away too soon? Are you not really invested? Because sometimes, I'll be real, I feel like women can get treated like property. And the idea of another person having sex with their property is the real issue. Not necessarily that they cheated, more like, how did you allow someone else's penis to enter you?
Yes. So not so much about like the strength of the relationship or the bond in the relationship, but more about the fact that you stepped out.
Exactly. Yeah. Specifically stepping out with a man. If you're stepping out with a woman, I feel like oftentimes people start getting that lesbian sex fantasy thing going on in their head, and they feel like it's forgivable if you allow them to join.
Right.
So then in that case, even your pleasure in that way still becomes about them. But like this, I was just like, okay, I appreciate the flip of the question and how he has to consider for himself. Did he walk away too soon?
Yes. So I want to talk about the conversation kind of generally. So this kind of feels like what, in my mind, especially, and, for those of you who don't know, my clinical specialty is breakups. And so it kind of reminds me of the conversation that clients often think they are going to have with an ex to kind of receive this closure. And so I thought it was really interesting to see it play out on TV in a way that was like so well written. And of course, they are characters. But I think what happened is what most people think is going to happen in these quote unquote closure conversations. And of course, real life does not often look the way it looked, of course, that we saw this past Sunday.
No. Yes. And on top of that, I would say that they already started the journey toward closure well before they had the conversation.
Yeah, because we need to think about, like, how long has it been since the breakup? At least a year.
Oh, no.
Maybe more. It's been some time, right? And so I think the other thing that happens is that people try to have this conversation very soon, right? Before you are actually even ready to have what I thought was a pretty mature conversation between the two of them.
And it was beautifully mature, but I'm just like, I don't want people to get it twisted and start thinking that they're going to have these type of conversations if they go back seeking an ex. I'm like, no. I feel like, number one, you can't really be going there with an agenda like that. To get closure is to get closure, but most people are not actually seeking closure. They're actually seeking another way to get back with the person that they're no longer with.
And you know what? I'm calling it a closure conversation, but I mean, so it's yet to be seen, and we'll talk about like our predictions.
Yeah.
But I don't know actually what Lawrence was going in for, right? Like, I don't know if this was him trying to get closure or was this him thinking, okay, do we have another shot at this?
I'm hoping it was closure because I'm looking like, man, you about to move to San Francisco.
That's what I think is gonna happen too. That's what I feel like is gonna happen too. See, we getting ahead of ourselves. We gotta
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me bring it back. Bring it back.
So
Bring it back.
going back to your comment though, that you hope people don't like think that this is what's gonna happen with an ex. Under what circumstances do you think it is appropriate to try to have a conversation like this with an ex?
How about I've had this conversation with the ex. I'm about to marry him.
Well, so how you gonna tell the audience that they can't have this conversation and you about to marry your conversation?
Because we did it different.
Okay.
So, number one, this is our third time together.
Uh-huh.
The first time we broke up and we tried to get back together and go for it that second time, we did not have the conversation that we needed to have. There was no closure. There was no healing. We just thought that we could just jump back into it. Now, mind you, a whole year had passed between breakup and getting back together.
Mm-hmm.
And it still didn't work because I wasn't over what happened before.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even really conceptualized all the ways I was not over. Yeah. I jumped into let me try and be friends because he said, let's be friends. Okay, I'm going to try to be friends. But I was doing that creepy nonsense that a lot of people do. So I'm calling all of us out, where you remain friends with somebody with the hopes that y'all gonna get back together. Oh. Let me let you know right now that is creepy and manipulative and not okay. But a lot of us do it anyway.
We really do, right? And so we're gonna have to just pause here because I'm feeling a little triggered. Right? Because I do think, and I think it is often as women that we are the ones who end up hurt in that situation, right? Like, so we think
butthurt.
Yes, yeah, we think that kind of just
because we watch them move on while we think that we supposed to still be friends and maintain a space for them in our lives. So we get butthurt, and I'm just like, no. Yeah. We allowed this. We opened this door. We said we were willing to be friends before we were ready. That's not okay for anybody involved.
Yeah. I mean, and even earlier this season with Issa and Lawrence, there was still this awkwardness, right? Like, especially after she found out that he and Condola were dating, right? So there was still this weirdness, and it doesn't feel like until some of these later episodes where they have even been able to get into a place to be able to have this conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was grateful that they were able to move into that space. Like I think that having albeit not really a long conversation with Condola helped. I think that 2 episodes ago when, she was by herself, really considering the words of Molly and whether or not she uses people, I think that was also a time for her to just be soul searching in general and trying to learn more about herself. And despite the fact that she got left at that restaurant with that bill, I think that she's been showing us that she's more than willing to go all in.
Right.
And that this for her is along the lines, like, I'm going all in with my block party. I'm jumping in with 2 feet and I'm going to do the work. I'm going to jump in with 2 feet here and I'm going to do the work. And just constantly being willing to throw herself in. So throwing herself into this conversation, both feet. Again, I'm just like, okay, I'm looking at her and I'm impressed with how willing she is to jump in this way.
That makes me think about something that I also noticed in this episode was that, and I know even the last time you and I talked, we talked about like the growth that we had kind of seen Issa have, like just in terms of confidence and finally kind of figuring out what she wants to do. And I think it's funny how sometimes when you are with like an ex or somebody like who has been removed from your life maybe for some time and comes back, that you can fall into some of those old patterns. Because when they finally got to the restaurant where they ended up eating, there was this like awkwardness about like, okay, do I tell them that I've been here before or, not? And so then Lawrence finally says like, okay, let's have a no tiptoeing policy, no eggshells.
Yeah.
And so then it felt like it really allowed her to kind of walk back into this confidence that I feel like she has been kind of growing to have this season.
Exactly. And it was almost let's get to know each other and talk about the people we were back then. So it's, you don't actually know me anymore. Like, my drink has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I move has changed. And both of us we are not the exact same people that we were back then. So let us start here with getting to know each other while also resolving back then. And that's what my partner and I needed to do when we were finally ready this third time around to start trying to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people don't do it because most people are not being honest with themselves about what it is that they're seeking. They're not honest with themselves about their level of healing, about the work that they've done between, and then having the conversations as raw and real as they need to be.
So what are some questions you think you can ask yourself, or like, how would you know if you're ready to try to have this kind of conversation?
Ooh, I like that question. So for me, at this point, when my partner and I started dating again, or before we even really started dating again, number one, several years had passed.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4-ish, 5-ish, somewhere along there. A lot of years had passed. Enough years had passed that, number one, I actually had healed. I went to therapy for a while. I did go back to dating this one dude because I was like, yeah, this dude can't hurt my feelings like he can. So, but that was something also that I recognized while I was in therapy, that I was dating somebody because they couldn't hurt me as badly as this other person. So being able to call myself in around those things with love. I had decided at some point, like, I had done all this work. I had been single by myself, living my absolute best life. And I'm talking about, I was going on trips alone, going to dinner alone, going to movies alone. I learned to really enjoy my own company and fall in love with me in such a way that I knew what I was never going to take in anybody's relationship. And it became so glaringly clear how often I would silence myself or shut myself down to be in something with someone. And I realized that I ain't had to do that, and that no one was expecting it of me but me. So once I started to really get to know me better, that's when I knew I was ready to date. I ain't date him. Not immediately. I was dating other people, and I was sorting through the type of stuff I like and I don't like in a partner and in people that I was dating. I know that I don't like people dating me for my skin tone. That was a nice one. I was like, all right, don't like that. Like, ooh, you so chocolate and I'm so light, and I'm just like,
yeah,
dude, chill. Yeah. I feel like a skin tone and not a person. I recognized I didn't like people dating me for my profession because that turned into me doing free therapy. I learned a lot of things about myself more than anything, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. And then I got really good at being able to call something even before it fully happened, to be able to be like, all right, yeah, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And sometimes I would go forward with it anyway and just see if it didn't work. And it just wouldn't.
One more time.
Like, just one more time. Like, let me try. And with this person, I had gotten to thinking about them again in a more real way. And just wondering about them, how they're doing, what they're up to, and all that. And we started off, and I was actually in a space where I could offer friendship. And in that, at one point, I was just like, you know what? I think that I would like to explore the possibility of dating. What do you think? We had a long conversation about that. And then I went out to go see them. And we're talking about 3 months of conversation back and forth before we ever let anybody else know and before we were official. We did a lot of work. We had to call all of it out. Like how things went down when we were in college together. Like, yo, you didn't tell me that you were struggling with school and struggling to be in a relationship. Like, you could have said something. And at the same time, I was a whole selfish asshole back then. I used to be like, oh yeah, she gets what she wants. And I mean, I was insufferable, I am sure. And just being able to hear what he had to say about what it was like for him to be in a relationship with me back then. And for me to talk very honestly about getting back with him that second time, and that I dumped him the second time because I was just like, Nope. And I wanted to hurt his feelings. So I'm looking like, when you want to hurt somebody's feelings, you probably have no business being back with me. Just saying.
Yes.
So we laid all the stuff bare on the table. And then we started really dating a little. And we were constantly checking in. Some of that love stuff, it just picks back in and you just want to be able to say it. And then there was times where I was like, I'm not sure I love you. And he's like, that's fine. And I was just like, that felt better. That the level of honesty and vulnerability that both of us had to display to even get to this point has been incredible. And I don't know that a lot of people are willing to do that much work to have those type of conversations, to also talk about how you're going to reintegrate with somebody's family and with friend groups. Because that's part of the reason why we didn't say anything to anybody. We needed our stuff to shine through first.
Right. So what you're kind of talking about is something that I often talk about in terms of a relationship autopsy, right? So like going through,
I like that.
going through kind of all of the wreckage, so to speak, right? And looking at like what happened there. And I think that this is something that you can do both individually and if you're thinking about becoming a couple again, and thinking about the ways that maybe you didn't show up in the ways you wanted to in the relationship. Like, how was I not making my needs known?
I wish I had your book back then. It would have really helped me.
Yes, some of these questions are in my workbook, the questions that need answers after a breakup. It really kind of takes you through this whole process of like rediscovering maybe your own voice that might have been kind of diminished in a relationship and helping you to really kind of think about what would you want in a new relationship.
Exactly.
Whether it be with this person again or someone else.
Exactly. Yeah. And being able to show up for you. Because, I mean, let's make no mistake about it. Black women specifically are often told exactly how they're supposed to show up in anybody's relationship. And a lot of it has to do with diminishing the self to boost somebody else up. Right. I don't diminish nothing.
Right.
At all. And I just wanted a partner that was going to be able to be 100% secure with the type of person that I am, with the type of work that I do, and how it is that I show up. And my partner is that person. He was not that person at first. He had to grow into it, and I had to grow into allowing him to be that.
Yes.
Because I would calm it down. I would shut it down. I would do things that would let me be a little bit less than I am. And I'm like, if you're going to start with that energy, then you have to keep that energy too, sis.
Yes.
So when you show up, you get to show up fully. Right. And you get to see whether or not they can take being that way with you and whether or not they can actually be with you, all of you, not the pieces that you choose to show them or the way that we diminish ourselves to make them feel better about themselves. I am the breadwinner. I am an alpha in so many ways. And that does not make my partner, behind me. It does not put them beneath me. It means that they are an alpha in ways that I am not. They take charge in things that I do not. This house, in a lot of ways, is taken charge by my partner because I will starve us both. I'm just like, well, I order the Uber Eats, but cooking, dish doing, oh yeah, we're going to be butt naked and hungry in this house. Because I'm like, those things do not interest me. Those are not things that I feel require the brunt of my attention. I mean, I do them on occasion, but my partner has also been like, stop. My partner's been like, you've got to do X, Y, and Z. You are running a business. And as a person running a business, you need more time to run that business. Let me take care of you. And those words were just so real because when we got back together, I did not have a business. But now that I do, I'm just like, go ahead, man.
You gotta love it. And that is the goal for relationships, right? Is that you are able to show up as who you are.
And so many of us will still deny it.
Yeah.
We'll still be the ones to turn it off and make it not a thing because we will show up as less than who we are.
Right.
And we've got to do better than that.
Yeah.
Because we don't allow them to learn how to show up for us in all of our strength and in all of our vulnerability.
Amen. So we see that throughout the night, and we've already kind of alluded to this, throughout the night, Condola is texting or calling Lawrence to see if they can meet up later.
Giving me heart palpitations every single time.
Right? And I'm like, what is she going to say? Like, what?
Word. And I was like, is Lawrence being sneaky? Because that does not speak to his growth.
Being sneaky how? Like there's more going on between him and Condola than he was letting on?
Yeah, that's what I was like. What's going on here? This had better not be you treating Issa the same way that you treated that one, the one chick from like a season or so ago, where he's acting like boyfriend material, but really he a fuckboy. And I'm just like, come on now. Don't do that. Yeah, I'm hoping that you're being some level of
I didn't get that impression. Yeah, I felt like this was kind of out of the ordinary. Like maybe he and Condola had been kind of talking, but that maybe she was calling more that night for some reason, which led me to believe, like I have seen other people kind of speculate, is she expecting?
I hope not.
Did you think that? I definitely felt that.
You know what? When somebody said it, I was like, oh my gosh, she's a pregnant lady.
After the second call, I thought, wow, this is kind of like persistent, right? Like
she must really have something to say.
Right. Like what's happening that they need to talk tonight. So I don't know. We will see. So we kind of wrap up the episode. We see they share an Uber on the way back to both of their homes. And there's this.
She makes the assumption that he's still living. Right. He's still living a little wrong.
Right. Exactly. And so there's this teasing, and then he tells the Uber driver or the Lyft driver, like, okay, wait for her for 5 minutes. I just want to kind of show her my place.
Like 5 long minutes.
Right. So I already knew where we were headed at that point. Right.
So I was like, well, if you in the house, we know what's going on.
Right. She goes in, she takes a little bit of a tour, and then let's see what happens. Does Condola call or text before she goes to the bathroom or after?
She went to the bathroom, and then I think he called her.
He stepped outside because I think maybe he maybe had texted again or called again, and then he stepped outside to call her back.
And I can say this, I really appreciate that he didn't just ignore her all night long. He did respond back. I think that some people be acting like they too busy to send somebody a text message back. I'm just like, well, what is your level of investment with that person? What is their level of importance in your life? If you just refuse to give them any level of communication back. I actually appreciated that, because if she is indeed pregnant or something else is going on her end, at the very least, knowing that somebody is saying, all right, I'm about to get back with you. I'll hit you up soon. These things, I'm like, yes, they help to reduce another person's anxiety.
Right.
So I was appreciative of that, even though that's not how it went down.
Right. That he was considerate of her feelings. So we see that Issa does see him step out, like she overhears like some of the conversation, and she infers that he and Condola are supposed to be meeting up later that night. And so she is kind of on her way to go out, and then says, well, what if I want to stay?
And I was like, go ahead, girl. Hey, go on, say what you want. And this to me is that piece of her throwing herself in, of being like, yes, I'm here. Like, I'm a jump in with both feet. This is what I want. If this is something that you are also wanting, I want to make sure that I am clear that this is what I want. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I can see the, like, I feel like there was a part of me that was also like, good for her for being assertive, and like, even if he doesn't say yes, like she stated what she wanted, right? But there was also a piece of me that felt like, what happened here, right? Like, because it feels like there was a little bit of a competitiveness, and that may not be the right word, but I can't think of anything else, right? Like that she knows that he and Condola are planning on meeting up, and so she's now like, like throwing her hat in the ring also.
And you know what? I didn't get the competitiveness, but just if I don't tell you how I feel, I will be the one wondering what if. I will be the one not having done my part. I'm not about to step aside and let this woman, because remember she said it before, like, I feel like I built this man and she's going to reap the benefits of the work that I put in.
Right.
And so I appreciated being able to say clearly, like, this is actually what I want.
Mm-hmm.
If this is something that you are wanting, now is the moment to tell me.
Yes. Okay. I like that reframe.
Because I'm looking like, don't be hitting no Dwayne at somebody's wedding.
Right. Don't be waiting 5 years later to come forth.
Talking about some, will you?
Right.
It's like, no. We're not having no different world moments. You're not ruining weddings. Say it the day before. Say it a week before. Say it a month before. Preferably say it while somebody is maybe not with somebody else.
Right, where they are at least available. That's a good idea. Yeah. So we see that they have all the good sex, and she spends the night, and we see them wake up the next morning. They had a great time.
Meanwhile, I was where them clothes come from?
Right, I had to. So it wasn't until the third watch, because I have now watched it 3 times. It wasn't until the third watch that I realized she had bought the shirt at the art walk.
Oh, that
yes. Like,
thank you, because I was just like, oh, so you playing this?
Yeah, like, is this Condola's shirt? Like, whose shirt is this?
Like, whose clothes are you wearing, girl? I'm like, okay, thank you.
Right, yeah. So on third watch, I recognized that she had the bag leaving the art walk, so she had actually bought the sweatshirt.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense, because I was like, wait now.
Yeah.
What clothes you wearing? Because this is just a little too much.
Right. They wake up and he's like, oh, do you want me to bring you home or call a lift? I don't remember what he said. And she's like, no, I'll walk.
I was like, that doesn't look like anybody's short walk. I just want to make sure that
she said it was right around the corner. That was not right around the corner.
By any means.
No. But I think it was symbolic, and I also saw that Natasha did an interview about it, right? Because we often will hear that morning after walk as the walk of shame, so to speak. But this was not a walk of shame. Like, she was very proud, right? And I think it's also interesting that, of course, in the opening scene, we saw her fall on her face in these heels that she could barely walk in. And now she's like strutting down the streets of LA in these heels, feeling, it seems like really good about herself.
Feeling herself. I was like, I don't think so. Don't be happy. And I really do like that it was reframed away from a walk of shame, especially because Black women are often taught to be ashamed of their sexuality. We don't need any more rhetoric that sort of confirms that. Right. So being able to see it like, there's joy, there's peace, a walk of reflection, because she looked like she was still, thinking things through, not like pensively, but
not in her head Issa typical way.
Yeah. But in a way of like, yes, I'm good with how things went. And if, based on the preview for next week, I'm looking like in a way that says, okay, I'm ready to confront more things.
Yes. So now we can get into our predictions. So what do you think this means? So you already kind of shared that you are hopeful that this is like a closure kind of a situation, not necessarily that they're getting back together.
I'm hoping that this is a full close of this chapter, and that means that from here on in, when they are in space together, it's not fitting to be awkward or anything like that. But I'm not hoping for a reunion of Issa and Lawrence. I'm actually hoping for quite the opposite. I'm hoping for something that offers them both clarity about everything, the sort of closure that people say that they're looking for.
Right.
I'm hoping that they actually got that.
Yeah.
That they're able now to be in a space, like if they were to get together, and I'm not 100% opposed. I just don't want it to be another situation where they fall in love, because falling in love, of course, talks like you have no choice.
Yes.
You always have a choice. I would want them to grow in love and to be intentional in love, not be falling in it.
Yeah.
Like she fell on her face.
Way to bring that full circle. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't actually think that this is the beginning of them getting back together. And like you, I'm not opposed to them. I mean, this was shot so beautifully and written so beautifully that it makes me feel like, oh, they're so cute together. Like, I like them together, right? When I had not thought that before.
They got jokes.
Right.
I was just like, oh, I like that.
But I think
I'll be real. I really liked her with Nathan. Yes. And even, before he ghosted and everything like that. And I feel like he he was, and I guess maybe in that moment, specifically something that she needed. Had that level of, I got you, encouraging, do the thing that you want to do.
Yes.
Because, I mean, honestly, let's be real. That should have been Molly. Even at that point, it should have been Molly.
Right.
And it was not.
Good point.
But it was this guy. And he got to see the fruits of her labor.
You're right.
And I mean, we know they have laughs. We know that they communicate well. So I actually would prefer that. But I mean, I also know that people be like, don't be going back to no exes. So I mean, if there's a new person in the picture, I don't see nobody yet. But
right,
I'm gonna bring them on. I'm ready.
Yeah, we'll be open to it. Yeah, but I also think what a lot of us, like I saw a lot of people say that they felt like this was their favorite episode, like of the series. I mean, I think
it was so peaceful.
It was so peaceful, and I think given like again that the world is on fire right now, I think that it felt very calm. It felt really nice to see people like laugh together and tease one another and be in that way that we are with one another.
Black love.
Yes, to see Black love. But I think it also highlights how you can be familiar and comfortable with someone, and that still not necessarily mean you need to be in a relationship with them. And how sometimes we confuse it. How sometimes we confuse that, right? Because they, of course, have jokes because they like have known each other for years. Yeah.
Yes, they are familiar with each other. Of course, they have inside jokes. Of course, there is, that space of we got love for each other. But just because you have love doesn't mean you have to be together.
Yeah, so I actually think what's going to happen is that he is probably going to get offered a job in San Francisco, but is going to find out that Condola is expecting. And then we'll be forced to kind of make a choice maybe about whether he moves or whether he stays.
Ooh, that's what I'm thinking.
I know. I don't know. I had that feeling. And so then when I saw people online saying they thought that she was pregnant too, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not just me.
So y'all all been just dreaming of fish. Just dreaming of fishes.
Right, dreaming of fish. Somebody mama is dreaming of fish and we think it means Condola. I don't know. We might be completely left out of field with that, but we will see. And so, like you said, in the preview, we see that next week she has called Molly, it seems, to have this kind of conversation about like, how do we maybe regroup?
Yup, and I'm looking forward to that. I have been ready.
So I have to be honest, I am feeling the kind of way that she made the call.
Ditto. Oh, absolutely ditto. I definitely feel a way about that as well because it speaks to patterns in their relationship and it's almost like nothing's changed then because I have to reach out to you.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
It to me speaks to, it makes me wonder what kind of energy Molly is going to be coming in with. And if it's going to be that I wasn't wrong, you was wrong energy and be sort of sitting there the same way that she was sitting there in that restaurant when Issa pulled up and was like, nah, and left. Molly to me was so mean in that moment. Like when she was talking about it to Andrew and was like, she running from me, like she running from a real job. I was like, ooh, that let me know exactly what you think of her.
And, even in this preview, we see like she's like even still with Andrew having conversations about like not really wanting to have this conversation. Like, I don't remember exactly what she used, but it seems like she still, of course, feels a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We will have to see what's going to happen with them. So I think we only have 2 more episodes?
Yeah.
Is that it? Right? So
we have,
I know, so sad. We need
and I'm just like, I don't know if this is enough time to resolve.
I don't know. We only got 2 more episodes. So, and of course, it's not going to completely resolve because, of course, they've already been picked up for season 5, right? Yeah. So we will have at least 1 more season to kind of figure out what is happening with everybody.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that at some point, I'm still just speculating. I'm really just hoping that Molly puts away some of the other stuff and maybe is able to see how she was wrong and is able to offer a genuine apology and some level of restitution for what happened.
Well, we saw when she was on the vacation with Andrew that she called to her therapist. So hopefully we will see even in this next episode maybe a conversation with her therapist or maybe her reflecting on what she talked about in therapy.
That would be nice.
That would be great.
Because I'm like, I know one thing that us therapists do well. We help people see themselves.
Right. We will ask you a ton of questions.
Oh, yeah. And some of my clients, they be like big mad, little mad. They be like, so, I mean, you going to snatch my whole wig? You're not going to leave me no edges? I'm like, you didn't even need them edges.
Right, you ain't need them. They'll grow back. You're fine.
Yes. And they're going to grow back in a whole new, healthier way.
Healthy, right. Nice and thick.
Hair. You don't want that other stuff. Like, come on. Get snatched. So I'm hoping that, like, even if it does turn out that, Issa's the one that calls Molly, and maybe the conversation doesn't go as expected or as desired, that maybe the next thing is Molly going to her therapist and having a conversation and getting her wig snatched just a little bit. And then maybe she will then be the one to reach back out to Issa and to apologize and to actually mean it, because she would have done some reflection of herself where she's being challenged. Because I'm gonna be real, I'm a little disappointed with Andrew.
How?
I'm looking like he do gentle challenging, and that's all great and good, but I'm just like, where is the real challenging here?
So you feel like there may needs to be like a more intense maybe conversation in terms of challenging her.
Yeah, because I'm just like, yeah, I appreciate that he's a lovely and wonderful and almost perfect guy. But he also seems a little bit passive.
Yeah, so we did not talk about the episode last week where she went on vacation. We didn't do a recap after that one, but there was this whole blow up with the family, right? And so it could be that maybe we will see some of the aftermath of that, because I did not expect that to resolve as like easily as it did, given like the back and forth she had with his brother.
Word, I was like, what's up? I'm like, now, don't get me wrong, brother was dead wrong.
Oh, he was super wrong.
So wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm like, at the same time, I'm just like, Andrew, you still sort of left her out here by herself when they were having the argument. But at the same time, I'm just like, there's no level of nothing coming from you. Like, what's up? I'm just like, I feel like he just gives like these small little nuggets of revelations for her. And I'm just like, so you don't have like a plate of revelation? You only have nuggets?
Well, it could be that he knows that she can only take nuggets at this point. We don't know.
True.
So much yet to be seen, right? So much in 2 episodes. We got to answer all of these questions.
Yes, I'm excited and I'm looking forward. Yeah. I am, I'm in happy anticipation. I'm not, my stomach not in knots like it was when they had that blow up. Yes. And I was just like,
yeah, you're right. We're just hoping.
No deep breaths in. I feel like I'm ready to exhale. I'm just waiting to exhale.
Right. We just want to see how and if they are going to try to resolve this friendship.
I really do hope that they're able to do so. And even if they're not able to do so all in the, in the space of the rest of this season, I think that is also true for how we move. So like the same way that it took Lawrence and Issa all this time to be able to hash it out and put the stuff and lay it bare the way that they did in this episode, maybe that ends up being part of the Molly Issa work as well, that it is ongoing work. I would love to see the both of them in therapy together, because I think that they both have some things that I think they both have some legit grievances that they should be able to air out in all honesty and be heard.
Agreed. Yeah. And so we saw that she was able to do that with Lawrence many years later. And so it could be the same kind of thing with her and Molly, because that is the kind of conversation they also need to have.
Oh, absolutely.
What happened here?
Like y'all been messed up since season 1 too.
Yeah, there really needs to be an autopsy in this relationship to kind of see what has happened here.
So when you gonna write that book?
See how you always gotta go too far. With
love.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again this week. You will likely be back. Well, we know for sure you're going to be back in 2 weeks. Now, you might be back next week, depending on what happens in this Sunday's episode. We'll see.
But it's not going to blow up this episode. All good vibes, peaceful vibes, loving vibes.
Likely we'll be chatting with you again in 2 weeks to do a finale recap to chat about everything we see in the finale.
All right. I'm excited.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad Dr. Oriowo was able to join us again this week. Don't forget to check out the show notes at therapyforblackgirls.com/session158 for links to our previous 2 conversations or to grab your copy of her book, Cocoa Butter and Hair Grease. And please share your takeaways and predictions with us on social media using the hashtag TBGInSession. Don't forget to share this episode with the other insecure fans in your life. If you're looking for a therapist in your area, be sure to check out our therapist directory at therapyforblackgirls.com/directory. And if you want to continue digging into this topic and meet some other sisters in your area, come on over and join us in the Yellow Couch Collective, where we take a deeper dive into the topics from the podcast and just about everything else. You can join us at therapyforblackgirls.com/YCC. Thank y'all so much for joining me again this week. I look forward to continuing this conversation with you all real soon. Take good care.